Have you caught the Tucker and Ted interview?
I've played it maybe 100 times. I have it on a loop. It's better than Cats, man. It's better than Cats.
Hello and welcome to the Bulwark Podcast. I'm your host, Tim Miller. Happy Juneteenth. And for all the wokes out there, the DEIs, the women in the audience, I just want to say I'm well aware it's been a sausage fest around here lately. I've been trying my best to get a mix of viewpoints, but sometimes the schedules just don't work out. We had a cancellation late last night. I got out my binder full of women guests to find somebody good, and it was late night. And so I had to just call my comfort food an emergency backup. The parade of dicks will continue, but the good news is I found somebody who's in touch with his feminine side. He was a media advisor.
Thelma and Louise.
We called each other Thelma and Louise. It's close enough. He was a media advisor for W. McCain and Ann Richards. He was the co-creator and co-host of the Circus. It's Mark McKinnon. Hey, MCAT, how you doing, man?
Hello, my friend. Good to see you.
Thank you for doing this. It's been too long. I want to talk about the news with you, but I kind of want to just pick your brain first, like biggest picture. So it was just about 5 months ago that we had the inauguration. Like, what have you made of it?
Well, it's met my worst expectations on every level, and I mean, the greatest fear was that Trump would truly be unleashed. It was bad enough round one, V1, V2 is just Trump on steroids without any kind of oversight or anybody around him, any real adults in the room. My view is just that I'm not sure how or when it's going to end catastrophically, but it's going to end catastrophically. And the only question is, how bad is it and can we recover from it? I don't know if that's going to be because we bomb Iran or if it's because of the tariff economic policy, but it's going to go south. I mean, you just can't have somebody this disconnected from reality and adult supervision and American presidency in the year 2025 and expect that things are going to be okay. They're not.
You don't think there's adult supervision at the Pentagon? You're not feeling comfortable with a weekend talk show co-host running the military at this moment?
Well, I just was reading about this guy named General Eric Kurilla, who's the U.S. Cent Commander, Central Command. Apparently, he's kind of like in charge now, and the Hegseth's kind of deferring to him, and people actually think he knows what he's doing. They call him the Gorilla. So
I was encouraging until I got to the nickname.
Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah, what are his instincts going to be? Yeah, what's he going to tell Trump?
Yeah, I mean, you said that like it's going to end badly. I agree with that. I guess there's really, there's a range though, right? And you're more of a level-headed than me. You're always a little calmer. When we were riding around covering this stuff for the circus, and so I'm hoping maybe you can calm me, or maybe not, maybe make me more worried. But how's your level of alarm at this moment?
I'm an eternal prisoner of hope, as you know.
Yeah.
But well, listen, I think it's going to be really bad. I think we will recover. I think it may take years or decades, but in a macro, I'm at peace with it in a macro sense because I think that for the long-term equanimity of most American voters in America, this had to happen. And let me explain that.
Okay.
For the long arc of this story, because I think that in order for at least half the country to come to terms with the wreckage, they had to see the wreckage. They had to experience the wreckage. And if Harris were president, no matter how things went, and we know they weren't that bad under Biden, but they were certain that it was apocalyptic. Imagine what it'd be like under Harris. So no matter what she would have done, half the country would have hated her. Half the country would have said, we're going to hell. The only way that half of the country is ever going to reconcile the decisions that they made by voting for this guy is to realize the damage that he does to their own lives, which again I think is inevitable. So we're going to have to get through that. But I think ultimately that's going to bring most of the country back together to recognize, we do need to, the government's here for a purpose, and it's not the enemy.
Yeah. I thought you were going to go a different place with that when you said equanimity, because the one thing I think is true about the culture. Everybody, is it David French who says this? Somebody has a good observation about how everybody feels like they're losing. Everybody feels like their own side is losing, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I understand why that is, because across different vectors, both sides have been losing, like, depending on how you look at it. But if you just look at it from like a cultural arc standpoint, like, conservatives, right wingers, I think correctly that they were getting their ass handed to them, and like they did, they had the Supreme
In
Court.
what way?
Yeah, I want to explain it. Like, they had the Supreme Court and Congress, and so I know that this feels like, what are you talking about? Like, but culturally, institutionally, right? Like that, the universities, the movies, corporations, all having pride floats. Just like there was a cultural shift that was more towards the, whatever you want to call it, the left, or more. It's more really like elite global, kind of culture. And there have been like some big wins. I know it doesn't maybe feel that way for some people, but like between gay marriage and like healthcare, like across a lot of areas, there racial awareness, right? Like there'd been a lot of wins. And it wasn't like we got into perfect, but there'd been a lot of change in a period of time. And to me, the equanimity might be that, like, they got one.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of that's a little, well, that's kind of the flip side of the argument that I'm saying, that both the consequences and we won, we got it, and we caught the car, and we got the Supreme Court that we won, a lot of other things, and so that's a nice counterbalanced view.
Yeah. They got the little middle finger, his tiny stubby middle finger that they wanted, and now we'll see if that makes them happy. Okay, let's talk about what's going on in Iran, which may be the catastrophe that you're talking about, may not be. You said the Green Room, you had a broad theory of the case of what was happening there, so let's just start with that.
Yeah, I think that we'll very soon see how wrong this could be, but I think he's made a decision. I think he's made a decision to go in and support Israel with air cover and the bunker busting bomb, whatever it is, for the following reasons. One, I think the notion of Donald Trump peacenik is just a complete mythology. It's not who he is. He did it politically because it served his interest to be the anti-war guy, the no more forever wars, because of Biden and Bush and back down the line. But
he was just everybody's stupid guy. And so, like, had the presidents before him been anti-war, he would have been like, you guys are so stupid, we should have been doing wars.
100%.
Like, it was just,
but think about what his instincts really are. Military parades, shooting protesters. He loves offense. He loves military. He loves strongmen. He loves Putin. I mean, he loves all the authoritarian military guys around the world. That's A. B, he wants to be a winner, and he wants credit for, and he looks at what's happening right now. And so far, it's been really successful in terms of what Israel has accomplished over the last couple of weeks. And I think he's saying, geez, this is working out pretty well, and I want some credit. Now, suddenly we, not they. And so I think he's bought in, and I think Netanyahu's driving him like a truck.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, can't even be a controversial point at this point that Netanyahu's driving this, right? I mean, I hear what you're saying, that like he wants to be on the winning side.
Imagine the conversations he's having with Trump. It's like they've got the capacity. Yeah. If we don't do this, it's going to be on you that we didn't do it. And if we do it and we wipe it out, you're going to get credit for this.
Right. Yeah.
Win-win.
You were on with, and we have the former ambassador to Israel and Biden's Middle East guy, Dan Shapiro, coming on in segment 2 to talk about this a little bit more, kind of giving a more what the Israeli perspective is on doing this and how they've been effective. But I was interested in I was watching you were on with Scarborough before this, and my buddy J Mart doesn't even give a fuck about TV. By the way, this is a total aside. He's slouching. He's making faces. Like he's like the kid in the classroom doing spitballs now on TV. It's hilarious watching it. Anyway, I was watching you because I wanted to hear what y'all were talking about. And Scarborough made a point that was things in Iraq seem to be going pretty well the first couple weeks too. I thought that was an insightful point. But so I don't know what you kind of.
Well, I have a lot of muscle. I have a lot of muscle memory about that because I remember it very well. And it's sort of the fog of history that people forget what it was like in the moment. But, when we went in, it was not like a divided country or divided cabinet or anything. And it was like 100% or 99 senators voted to go in.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like this was a debate. We were all in, and it was like
Right.
everybody was there. And by the way, one of the interesting things about the Bush Library that's really cool is he has something called the Decision Points Center in the presidential library. And they picked 5 issues. It was like Katrina, Iraq, the financial crisis, a couple more. And they put you in the chair and they say, here's the information the president had at the time. What decision would you make? And I forget what the number is, but it's something like 88% of the people that go through there did exactly what President Bush did at that time with that information. So, but the Ben Rhodes, Obama's national security guy had
yesterday. Yeah.
Oh, great. Well, maybe I think I saw this from your podcast.
Okay, great.
So I stole it from you.
This is where you want to be in the culture, McKinnon, where
you're on top of the news, man.
Yeah, my interviews are just consuming you on your feeds.
I'm stealing stuff
in.
It's just osmosis, man. Anyway, I think he said it with you. He said the problem is that it could be a catastrophic success. Right? Yeah, so you have this incredible success of dropping this bomb that blows up the nuclear facility, and you succeed, and then you have catastrophic consequences after.
Now what?
Because what does regime change in Iran mean? I don't know.
Yeah. Just one more thing on going back to that Bush point. I just want to linger on that for a second since you were there, or around it at least. Like that moment, like the shock and awe, it's like there is like a hubristic moment where people can get caught up in this stuff, right? Sure. Where it's like, I was like, we got this, you know, and you do, and that is something to think about right now in the Israel scenario, because there's kind of like a good reason kind of for Israel to be hubristic. And it's pretty astonishing what they've done.
Yeah,
really.
And I think it goes to your point that people get sort of caught up in that success, and we're the smartest military people in the world, and these guys are on their heels, and let's take them out while we can. We're rolling. Let's go. And you just kind of get caught up in the momentum of the war.
Guys, I'm coming up on a vacation, and I want it to be carefree. You want to have any of those nagging worries out of your mind. And one way to do that is to address your trust and will. Go to trustandwill.com/bulwark to get 20% off their simple, secure, and expert-backed estate planning services. Trust and will is super easy. It's a little depressing when you start to realize that you got to get into the trust and will part of your life, but it is what it is. Once you've accepted that, once you've done your Ujjayi breaths, once you've centered that this is where you are in life, it's nice to have a product that's easy to use. Their website is simple to navigate. All your information and documents are securely stored with bank-level encryption. Each will or trust is state-specific, legally valid, and customized to your needs. We can't control everything, but Trust and Will can help you take control of protecting your family's future. Go to trustandwill.com/bulwark for 20% off. That's 20% off at trustandwill.com/bulwark. Talking about the fissures, though, and then maybe the disagreements. Have you caught the Tucker and Ted interview?
I've played it maybe 100 times.
Okay.
I have it on a loop. I have it on a loop over here.
Well, good. How about 101? Because I played one clip from it yesterday.
Cats, man. It's better than Cats.
I played one clip from it yesterday, and I was like, "Yeah, I need one more. I'm not done with it yet. So let's listen. Let's listen to a different part of the exchange."
It's so good. It's so good.
It's interesting you're trying to derail my questions by calling me an anti-Semite, which you are.
I did not.
Of course you are. And rather than be honorable enough to say it right to my face, you are in a sleazy feline way implying it, or just asking questions about the Jews. I'm not asking questions about the Jews. There's nothing to do with Jews or Judaism. It has to do with the foreign government.
Isn't Israel controlling our foreign policy? That's not about the Jews.
You said, I'm asking you.
And by the way, you're the one that just called me, I think, a sleazy feline. So let's be clear.
It's sleazy to imply that I'm an anti-Semite, which you just did.
No, I just said, why is that the only question you're asking? You answer it. Give me another reason. If you're not an anti-Semite, give me another reason why the obsession is Israel.
I am in no sense obsessed with Israel. We are on the brink of war with Iran. And so these are valid questions.
But you're not asking.
Wow, I didn't even hear that clip. That's even better.
It gets better and better.
That one's been lost in the in the shuffle, man. That's incredible. What, sleazy feline?
Yeah, if the glove fits. I don't know. Sleazy feline, not too bad. What do you like? How deep do you think is this personal? Like, how deep do you think the rift is? Is Tucker kind of on an island? Like, what do you make of the fight?
Well, if he's on an island, it's a largely populated island of Magites. I mean, he and Bannon. I mean, I think that whatever you say about those guys, I think they have a pulse, the true pulse of the core MAGA base, and I think this is where they are. That they really are an isolationist group. And Tucker, I don't think Tucker will just believe anything. It's not like he has an ideology, but I think maybe, I don't know, maybe say the same thing about Bannon. But I mean, that's some high level entertainment there.
I liked his little he dipped into the William F. Buckley there in the middle for like 2 words.
Yeah.
What show you? I felt like he was on a firing line there for a second with Ted Cruz.
It's just, I mean, it was such an ambush. He like looked up the population right before the interview.
It was an ambush, but there's some legit points, I mean, Ted makes a little bit of a legit point about Tucker's. This
is an interesting historical demarcation, because I mean, look who's in this coalition. It's not just Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tucker and Bannon. It's Elizabeth Warren,
right?
I mean, it's a really interesting coalition.
Yeah, Tommy Vitor over there on Pod Save America. I was listening to them the other day, and he has strange new respect for Tucker, it turns out. So and sometimes when a person is right, they're right. If is
Tucker be right for the right reasons.
You know what I mean? Maybe right for the wrong reasons. I want to talk about immigration with you a little bit, because I think, like me, when you were a Republican in good standing, like, kind of bought the. Maybe I don't know what. Actually, I only ask this question: was it BS? Was the compassionate conservatism stuff BS? Was that a
no? I don't.
Just a marketing thing, or did folks really believe it? I guess.
No, I listen. I believed it, and I think George Bush believed it, and that's part of what drew me over the bridge. And then, I mean, I was there in Texas and saw him embracing immigrants, saw him on the border. I mean, that you can't fake that stuff. I mean, he was, speaking Spanish to them and embracing them, and by the way, it was his sort of compassionate version of immigration and trying to fix the system that I fully supported, and that he wanted to campaign on that. And a lot of people are saying, that's a third rail, you can't do it, blah, blah, blah. And he said, tough, this is what I believe, and you're going to. So, but the interesting thing about it, Tim, is that, that was, that was 25 years ago. So that's, like a third of my life that we've been talking about this with zero action, which is amazing. When you think about, I don't think anybody disagrees that, or very few, that it's not an issue that needs to be addressed. And the only question is, how do you address it? What's the fix?
Yeah. I'm happy to hear you say that. It was one of my failed projects. I was probably going to lean on you to help me with this. I was pitching it as a podcast, like back before I started doing this podcast, where I was going to go interview all the OGW people and try to like answer this question. Like, was this real? Because like I thought it was real as a kid. I was drawn to it.
What did you think about Jeb's view on it?
Oh no, he was genuine about the immigration stuff. Though I think that you could explore all that and be like, okay, well, what are the limits to the compassion, right? And I think that there are layers to explore, there for sure. Yeah. But I mean, he was definitely, at least on criminal justice issues and on immigration issues, very legit. But then it's like these questions of, you make these sacrifices and alliances, and what are the priorities? Anyway, I thought that'd be an interesting thing to explore. But I bought into it and felt that it was genuine, and so it's been a real betrayal. Like, on the one thing, when people have like, you've changed your views and everything, I was like, I don't know. I feel like I've been totally betrayed. Like they sold me from Reagan all the way through McCain on, Shining City on a Hill, and and this is the good part of America, et cetera. And like, now we're the fucking nasty, like we're China, like we're the nastiest immigration policy in the world. So I just, like, that is the thing that has hit me the hardest, maybe because the betrayal's part of it. The humanity element is also part of it. But what, like, as you've watched kind of what they've been doing across all of the different elements with immigration, like what has grabbed you the most?
Well, at the core of it, the hypocrisy, and you can take it this sort of issue by issue about how Trump has discarded sort of the historical Republican approach on these issues to but I mean, for example, like I was on the Bush appointed me to the broadcast board of governors, which oversees Voice of America. That's all about pushing the freedom agenda around the world, and Trump's cut that. That's how much more Republican can you get than that idea?
Yeah.
And that you would shut that down. So on the immigration side, at the very core of this, and we're seeing it now in the with the ag sector particularly, is that these are people. I mean, they're here for the most American of reasons.
Yeah.
And these are like, really religious people, hardworking people. They're not criminals. They may not have their papers, but by God, they are, patriotic, America loving people working their asses off. And I think that's, that's the thing that gets me in the end, is that it's just, when you get to the core of this, it's very anti-American.
Anti-American. It is. It's un-American. I keep saying it. I was reading the local paper this morning. We're going to do a little local news segment on this with New Orleans, because this struck me. This just really made me sad. And this stuff is happening all over the country. And there's this kind of ongoing debate about, is Trump just targeting blue cities, and this is part of some fight. And I think it is that. Like, he's trying to escalate fights, obviously, with sanctuary cities, quote unquote, and with blue governors. But the policies are way more far reaching than that. And here we are in Louisiana, and we've got Kenner, which is a suburb of New Orleans, is 30% Hispanic. They canceled their Hispanic Heritage Festival because they're worried about an ICE raid.
I saw that.
Talk about un-American. And then another local story in the paper. Check out NOLA.com, subscribe and support them. Doing real journalism, is a flood control project job site was raided. It's like, really? I mean, how much more self-harm can you be doing than we're gonna deport the people that are working on a construction project to help with flood control?
Yeah,
it feels like New Orleans could use some infrastructure related to flood control, and probably if we can get people who are willing to come work here and help us with that and do so and follow the rules, it seems like that's probably a win-win.
Yeah, and the tension now that's happening in the administration is that the ag secretary went and weighed in heavily, and then of course Stephen Miller and Kristi Noem jumped in to reverse the reversal. But the problem is that Miller and company have come up with this number of 3,000 deportations per day to meet a mark of 1 million per year, and so the orders have been done. The interesting stories about the demoralization in Homeland Security and ICE. These people who went in it for the right reasons are having to go arrest really good people, and they're not criminals. And the notion that they sold was not that we're going to go round up hardworking people who just didn't have papers. So we're going to go round up all these gang members and criminals. Well, they're just the problem is there aren't 3,000 a day of them to do that.
Yeah.
So then that pulls up all these really good people.
There's some economic impact on that too, but I want to play one more thing because it's been going around, and it's from the first term, and I feel like there's something here. I don't know. Maybe all these guys have been broken by 10 years of Trump, but a much younger looking Joe Rogan. I don't know if you've seen this. This clip has been going around. It's during the child separation stuff. And I want to show you how he was talking about this back then.
Broke the law. Shouldn't have fucking come over here if your kid. You didn't want to get your kid separated. If you were in the presence of a woman who came over here from Guatemala and she's poor and she's starving and they're taking her baby away and she's wailing and screaming from a primal place in her DNA that the one thing she loves more than anything is being taken away. A baby.
Yeah.
If that doesn't freak you the fuck out, you're not a part of the team, man. You're missing it. You're missing it. What are we here for? We're here for 100 years of whatever. That's what we're here for. If you want to spend 100 years saying, "Hey, she shouldn't have fucking broke the law," I don't want you on the team. You're an asshole.
I mean, that's really good.
Occasionally Rogan kind of
Yeah, and I keep banging this drum because I'm like, man, I think that Democrats and whoever, commentators, comedians, podcast bros should be in these spaces making these arguments. I think that.
Was that a recent clip?
No, that was from the first term.
Well, but I do. I mean, I heard Rogan do something similarly recently.
Yeah.
So I mean, he does sort of like, on occasion figure out the humanity of stuff. Humanity, sort of ekes through occasionally.
And these stories are still like we don't have a child separation policy right now, but like the stories are still happening. I don't know. I get this shit sent to me all the time, because I'm so obsessed with it, and I tell people, I was like, don't send me national news stories and memes. I've seen all of those already. But if you have a local news story about something that's happening in your community, send it to me.
I think that stuff's breaking through, Tim. Yeah. And I think that there's a repetition about it. And so I know that the political, circle around Trump is like, you can do anything you want on immigration. You're bulletproof on it. Don't worry about it. But the reality is that those numbers are now south. Even as immigration numbers, which is obviously his strongest issue.
Yeah.
But the fact is that Americans, no matter how strongly they feel about deporting people who are bad people, they're not they have a real sense of fairness, about deporting people that shouldn't be deported to a prison in a foreign country. They don't think that's right. And also, deporting people that don't have any criminal background.
Yeah.
They do draw a line.
Yeah, they do. And like the two stories I was referencing that people sent me, like one was was the wife of a military guy, and they kind of tricked her a little bit to get her to show up to a appointment. And then the other one was the wife of a pastor who had kids here.
Yeah, and then there was the one just in the last day or two about the Afghani interpreter guy,
who's for this? A pastor's wife who's been here since 1998 is getting sent back to Mexico?
Well, I think those are the kind of stories that get real sticky. Like you said, especially people read about local stories, they're like, well, wait a minute, what's going on here? I didn't sign up for this.
I want to go back to the econ side now. Chamber of Commerce, Tim, and MCAT can come out because in addition to the humanity, there's the econ side. Matt Iglesias posted this. I think it was people are like, what? How there's housing market issues right now? Like there's softness but like costs are going up, and people are like, why? And Iglesias just summed it up this way pretty simply. He goes, well, we're raising financing costs for things. Higher national debt's going to increase interest rates on everything. We're raising building material costs directly with tariffs and indirectly with like these worksite raids where like if you have fewer people, that you're going to increase the labor costs. And I think that like unlike the first term, Trump is like walking into a little bit of an economic pickle this time. Like the stuff that he wanted to do, the guys around him didn't really let him do. Like we focus on that in the context of the authoritarian stuff, but it's also been true in like the economic policy stuff. I don't know. Do you think that's overstated?
Well, I'm just a shallow media guy, and okay. I am not an economist, and I flunked Econ 101. But even I.
That's why you're the person. You're like representing the man of the people here, concerned about your prices.
The whole tariff obsession from the very beginning, it just struck me as insane. It's Trump somehow read something about something that happened in the late 1800s, and just sort of transposed it to modern day without realizing that there were different circumstances, and it became this sort of magic wand, much like the wall was in 16. The wall's going to solve everything. We're going to build a wall, and Mexico's going to pay for it. Tariffs is kind of the same thing. He just somehow latched onto this notion that that the countries are going to pay for it. There'd be the consumers here wouldn't have to pay for it. Which is there's no economist in the world that say that that's true.
Yeah.
And so he found a couple of nutballs, Peter Navarro and Lutnick, and a couple of others that egged him on. And just walked into this crazy tariff thing that, Scott Bessent, I think history will go down as showing that he saved us from true economic catastrophe. I mean, had those initial tariffs.
I hate to hand it to Scott Bessent. I don't know. We've got gay on gay crime with Scott Bessent. I can't do it. But that's fine.
The gays did a good one there.
Okay,
you just saved us. I'm not endorsing him across the board, but in that moment, he pulled us back from.
He certainly is smarter than Howard Nutlick, but low bar. But he certainly is. Okay, media guide question then on econ. The Punch poll, the DC, the little congressional news outlet that follows Congress, they have a take up this morning of just about how some Republicans on the Hill, and they're well sourced there, are starting to panic a little bit about the polling numbers around the big beautiful bill and how it's not popular and how they don't have a message on it yet. Now the Democratic message is clear. How about that for a change of pace? The Democrats have a clear message and the Republicans are flailing on their message a little bit. What do you make of all
that? I think that this could be the catastrophe that implodes the whole Trump second term. I just, of course, the irony that you can appreciate, given where you and I both come from, is this notion that the Republicans actually cared about the deficit.
Yeah.
And that they're the ones, you look historically, who's driven it up? Well, Clinton brought it down. You kind of go through the Democratic presidents. They got things sort of right-sided. And then you stack up Bush and especially Trump. I mean, he's driven up the deficit 3, 5, 6 times. And, we're into territory now where, again, this is where the economists come in. The bond markets are freaking out. And so if this bill goes through, to me, it just feels like they're driving off the cliff.
Yeah. Okay. My old Republican has to come in for a second. Joe Biden did not do a good job on the debt and deficit, but okay. Sometimes the Democrat listeners are like, you got to give us credit. And I was like, okay, I'll give you credit for the work in 1999 and Barack Obama's failed effort with John Boehner and Simpson Bowles. It was a good intentioned effort, but it didn't land.
I hear you. A lot of that was COVID.
Bush and Trump have been a nightmare. Everybody's been a nightmare on it. Elon. I wanted to pick your brain on Elon because Elon sent a tweet maybe a week or two ago now that I felt like might have been an MCAT bat signal. He was like, maybe the 80% in the middle should create a party that gets rid of all these guys on the extremes. And I was like, did you get a phone call from Elon? Did he try to shake your tree a little bit?
Oh yeah. Well, this has been my obsession for many, many years. There's just this quaint notion that there should be an alternative to Coke or Pepsi. We should have 7-Up or Red Bull. And I've been, tilting.
Is Elon, who you imagined, is the standard bearer for that?
No, but I'll take whoever we can get. It's a steep hill and a big rock. Come on in. The water's really chilly. So, but listen. It's not. I mean, Elon's not what gets me excited about this notion. It's looking at what's happening with Gen Z. And, they are just radically opposed to kind of the institutional parties and looking for an alternative and a different way. And that's on both sides of the aisle. Yeah. So, it just seems, of course, the barriers, and I could go on for hours about, the experience of meeting the buzzsaw of trying to do an effort like this, because it's almost impossible.
Well, why don't you do it? I did a Reddit Ask Me Anything yesterday. People can go and check that out on Our Politics.
Yeah.
And I do, anytime I do one of these, you get this question: why not a third party? Why doesn't it work? Explain why it hasn't worked?
Well, I'll start off with I think there's huge opportunity there. I think there's a huge desire for it. It's just that the system is really rigged against it, just in the sense that you have to get on the ballot in 50 states. And in order to do that, you have to raise, just the most recent example was about $50 million. So, Elon's got 50 million, so he could do it, but there's not a lot of Elons around.
Yeah.
And then once you do that, you have to go around all these states and get on the ballot. And in every one of these states, there is a Democrat or a Republican Secretary of State who's going to do everything they can to question your signatures, throw up roadblocks, file lawsuits. So it's an incredibly difficult thing to just get on the ballot and do all of that. And there have been a couple of different efforts over the last, couple of cycles or several cycles. All of them kind of flamed out for different reasons. But again, people always say to me, third party is never going to happen because it's never really successfully happened before. And it's like, nothing happens in politics until it does. And,
My
we're never
answer is, what do you make of my answer? My answer is, folks, is this. There are two possible ways, and neither of them have really been tried. One is because it's hard and it's a lot of work, which is just start in state legislators and local races and just like build from the ground up. And that's a lot more work than starting a group and going on TV. I think that might not work, but it's worth a try. And the other one is a fuck you billionaire who has like insanely weird views, like not what you would think, not like, oh, I'm socially moderate and fiscally conservative. Like this person would have totally wild views that are not out in the public, that nobody's taking on right now. Like we should ban AI, and also I really love guns, and I don't know, you know what I mean? Like totally like those are the only two paths. Like that.
I agree, and I'm really skeptical about the first one. I just think it's got to be a kind of Moses leading out of the desert, and it's got to be from the top. I mean, doing I understand the local state, but just to do that is exponentially harder than the alternative, perhaps.
Anyway, we went down a sidetrack, but I got intrigued.
No, a lot of people are really interested in it.
Yeah.
So it's worth
I wanted
about.
to, though, when I brought up Elon initially, I just like the feud. Do you have any hot takes on the feud? Because it's ongoing. Elon, people are like, oh, it's over now. But Elon tweeted yesterday calling Trump's like head of personnel, Sergio Gore. This guy I know used to work for Rand Paul. Elon tweeted that he's a snake. Elon tweeted that he's a snake yesterday. So it doesn't, as I've always said, I was like, you can't really have a truce with an unhinged poster. I know a lot of people that love to post on social media. They're not
especially when you're posting to the platform that you own.
Yeah. It's like, you might think you have a truce, but something's going to happen, and he's going to fire off.
It's the truce is going to happen until he takes his next round of Adderall and he's going to crank. I just think that's just going to be on again, off again, and. Yes, Sergio, I had some. He's an interesting cat, isn't he?
You had some run-ins with him?
Not run-ins, but I mean, like when he worked for Rand and whoever.
It's wild. The more you know these people, the scarier you are of the state of who's running the government.
Exactly. Well, I tell the story about. You'll appreciate this, Tim, because you were on the A team. 16. You think about if you were a Republican operative like Tim Miller. And, you make your bones in your career and maybe a bunch of money by being working for a successful presidential candidate, by helping elect a president. That's the World Series of politics. So in that cycle, there were, I think, 18 candidates ultimately. And if you're a Republican operative, if you interviewed with Trump, that was your 18th interview, because you'd already been turned down by Rubio, Jeb, you just go down the line. There were some A-listers in that race, and nobody thought Trump was going to win. So imagine the level
I had multiple offers. This is not really a brag. It's just like there's so many people out there. Like it was the supply and demand was such that like you're really at the bottom of the barrel.
It was truly broken toys. So I mean,
and now it's self-selected for the most sociopathic people who have been like, after all this, now I want to come back in.
Yes, I mean, so this time around, you could say, well, it's not just all broken toys, but it is people. The reward system in that ecosystem is not for following rules; it's for being rule breakers, right? It's for being shitstormers, glass breakers, outrage performers, those who, it's the loopers, loomers. It's the Laura loomers. Those are the people that get attention and rewarded in that universe. It's not people who do good. It's people who break shit.
All right. Do you miss the road? Are you happy? What are you doing? How are you spending your days? Now there's no circus. Are you bike riding or what?
Well, I say that people ask me how I'm doing. I'm saying, well, I'm pacing the cage as I look at the world, but I'm also experiencing radical gratitude for my little bubble. You and I are both from Colorado.
Yeah.
I'm back there and I love it. I live in a town of 800 at 10,000 feet with a national forest behind me and a river running through it. So, and grandchildren and family surrounding me. So, I have a lot of gratitude and feel very grateful for my life, and I worry about the world, but I love being where I
Probably
am.
the
I
best
love
lineup of politicians in Colorado too. Like the Colorado
really
isn't
good. Yeah,
broken. I mean,
that's
there are
the
a
other
couple
thing.
bad ones.
I'm so glad to be out of Texas,
Yeah.
Where George Bush couldn't get elected now.
Yeah.
But it's such a purple state. Like Michael Bennett, he's running for governor now. He'd be a great governor. You just kind of look at the Bennetts and the Hickenloopers and the Polises. That's where I live politically, and so I'm very comfortable there.
All right. MCAT, thank you. Holler at me anytime. It's good to see you. Appreciate you stepping in today, and hope to see you soon.
Always willing to jump in the car.
All right, brother. Come on down to New Orleans soon. We can have a purple drink.